Happy Monday. Welcome to Instagram Live. We have been on a roll with these lives, which is really a testament to all the great work that people out there are doing. Today's guest is Sarah Trott. Her and I recently met because we are both participating in Podcastathon, which is a global initiative to bring all the podcasters from all over the world together to raise awareness about their favorite charity. So icing on the cake, Sarah and I connected, and here we are doing a Instagram Live for you. We will also be doing a podcast interview. Stay tuned for that. Today's topic is focusing on the fourth trimester, and I'm going to let Sarah in. Continue this conversation. Good morning. It worked.
Hi, success.
It's
I'm so
good to see
excited.
you. I was just saying how we met recently because we're both participating in Podcastathon, but how great that we can take that further and actually collaborate on our mutual passion. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for the idea. This is so neat. And I know, we've just recently connected, and I really admire Podcastathon and all the participants who are there supporting charities. And I was totally thrilled to find you and a handful of
Likewise.
other podcasters in this space who are supporting charities in the perinatal and parenting space. So that was super cool.
Yeah, and it allows us to learn about each other's work. And for example, fourth trimester is something that I learned about once becoming a mother. And it is such a critical time period, but often not talked about. I mean, we do focus on the baby being in that fourth trimester, and we're going to talk about exactly what that means for our audience. But nobody really focuses on the mother and what she's going through, right? It's always how is the baby and is the baby doing well and the well visit follow-ups. But what about the mother? Because it is a transformative period, right? Physically, mentally, spiritually. And what does that look like for mom? So I can't wait to talk about this with you.
Me
Tell us a
too.
little bit about yourself before we start.
Sure. I'm Sarah Trott. I am the host and founder of Fourth Trimester Podcast. It's a show that has been a long time passion project of mine. I've been doing this for about a decade, and I work in tech, and I have a family. I have a husband and three daughters. So we are very busy on a personal and professional level. And I am very passionate about everything postpartum and perinatal, and I am definitely a birth and postpartum advocate. So I like meeting with and sharing information that's shared with me from all kinds of professionals across the spectrum of birth and postpartum, the physical, social, emotional aspects. And so that's what my show is all about. It's bringing in professionals who are credentialed and experienced and have stories to share from their own experiences becoming parents, but then also deep diving into a specific topic, whether that be sleep or mental health, you name it. So we have
Yeah,
a lot
and
of goodness.
I've been listening even though we just met. So keep up the great work. Now tell us what fourth trimester means because we know pregnancy is three trimesters, but why do we call it the fourth trimester?
Yeah, well, it's just a funny way of thinking about the following 3 months right after you have a baby, right? And um, you could take that literally, right? Because you've got every trimester is a few months. So you could say, well, it's that 90 days. But I really appreciate the context that Jane Honigman, who's the founder of Postpartum Support International, puts on this. And she basically says postpartum is forever. And in fact, she wrote a book, and that's the title of her book. And well, one of her many books. And she's the founder of the charity that I just supported. So just to bring that full circle. But it's true. So you have this critical time period right after you have your baby where you are cracked wide open emotionally and you are physically recovering, and a lot changes for for the person, for mom birthing person, in terms of their identity, right? It's often like, you get pregnant and then you think like, oh, okay, that's going to be over, but you're like, oh no, the pregnancy was the easy part.
Yes,
for a lot of
and
people.
nobody talks about this in all the books and the workshops, even advice from your OBGYN of what happens once you've given birth, right? So we can
Yeah.
be empowered with all the knowledge. And a lot of us don't go through the steps of labor delivery. About what those few months after look like, because it is a shock to the system if you don't have the support, but also just awareness of what to expect.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I want to pause on that word that you just said, expect, because expectations are really a big part of this. And I'm sure we might end up talking more about this, but going into your pregnancy or your birth or you're starting a family experience, however that looks, a lot of us have certain ideas in our head about how we want that to look and feel. I mean, maybe not, maybe just go into it and you're like happy go lucky and there's like more power to you. Um, but a lot of us, we talk about birth plans and
Mhm.
I actually have a fourth trimester plan and birth plan template on my website with a lot of good info on there. They're free,
Awesome.
but I like to use the word intentions
Hmm.
rather than plan, because if we can set ourselves up with a mindset shift around that, around the expectations and what to expect, um, that allows for flexibility, it goes a really long way. And that's like another one of these big things that I don't hear a lot of people talking about is like, like it might not go the way you wanted it to or the way you thought it might. And that's really kind of good to acknowledge and have in mind and be like, oh, well, maybe I should think through a plan B or C,
Hmm.
educate myself on different things that might not be my ideal, but that way, if I'm in a situation, I kind of know how to handle it. So, and I have a little bit of opinion around different things that might happen. So, I just wanted to highlight that on that really, really important mindset change.
It's so true. And I feel the more rigid we are, just life will throw things in your way that takes you by surprise. But it always, to me, comes back to that trusted relationship you have with your healthcare provider and then your pediatrician afterwards, because there's a lot of unknowns, you have a lot of questions, there might be a lot of fear and anxiety. And again, you are still recovering and you're adjusting to this new life, and you're
Hmm.
responsible for this human that the nurses will hand off to you and say, well, here you go.
Right.
Now he or she is all yours. And if you are able to speak openly with your trusted healthcare provider, that really makes or breaks your entire parenting experience. So be open and ask questions out of curiosity. And hopefully you have that relationship with the other person where they can offer you knowledge so you can make an informed decision. I think those are so critical, but so undervalued.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And
Yep.
no, go ahead. I just wanted to ask you, with all of the women that you've worked with, what have you seen in those critical post-birth few months where it's a blur, right? Everyone reports it's a blur, but what does it actually look like mentally and physically?
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly speak to my own experiences as a mom and a parent, and reference the many, many stories that have been shared with me. Think it's very eye-opening for a lot of people because like I said, there's this realization that like, oh no, wait, this is the start of a journey, right? It's the
Hmm.
end of a pregnancy. A pregnancy is very temporary, like being engaged, right? Like
Yes,
this really special
exactly.
temporary time, and you're easing into this transition, and this whole idea of bouncing back is just kind of nonsense, right? You don't bounce back. You transform. You're a new person. Your
You took
body
the
has
words
changed.
out of my mouth. Yes. There is no going back. You're only moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so that's kind of nice to keep in mind too, right? Like, and be okay with the change, and not beat yourself up for like the process, right? Allow the process to happen. So yeah, what is it like? Physical challenges. I mean, you've just given birth, so you're recovering from that, which is sometimes looks like stitches, sometimes looks like a lot of soreness and pain. If you've had a C-section, it's major abdominal surgery. That's huge. So there's a lot of physical recovery. Emotions are everywhere. You're just kind of sore and leaky physically, and then your mental health and your emotions um, are really being kind of put to the test because your hormones are everywhere and you're adjusting to
Mhm.
this new little baby that's in your arms. And one of the things that someone who I have a lot of respect for, who's a somatic experiencing practitioner, talks a lot about is how people who have histories, either mental health histories, actually, I've talked to a lot of OBGYNs about this too. And in fact, also a psychiatrist, but who's been on the show. But this idea that like if you have a history, whether it be a mental health history for you or you're someone in your family, then it's a really triggering time. And also if you have past trauma,
Mhm.
either from your own childhood or your adulthood, like this can be a time it might be surprising that these things come back up. So if you know that's you and you're
Mhm.
in your pregnancy and you've got time to think about it, like that's a great time to go and maybe proactively make an appointment with your doctor and talk about those things so that you're not caught in the headlights of it, and so your partner, if you have one, can support you. Your other team who you've hired, if you have like a birth and postpartum doula, they can support you. Like the more knowledge, the better, and the more
Yes.
support, the better.
Yes, support is huge, right? So you talk to the mothers who've had an enjoyable experience and they've gotten through it, they report having support. And then the ones who've done it in isolation, I mean, it really, like I said, you don't forget those moments when you are alone and you don't have support, and it feels endless, right? Because when you're in it, it feels like you're never going to get out of it. The baby's never going to stop crying. And so really support village, right? We know in all parts of the world there is that village. Often in the Western world, parenting is usually in isolation, right? For all the different reasons. I know dads are now stepping up more than ever to play those vital roles, but we still, I feel, have a long way to go. So, all the reason why to talk about it, to understand what's going on, and then how can we support. You have 3 kids, so you have ton of knowledge and wisdom. What have been your biggest light bulb aha moments postpartum?
Uh, I think one of the biggest shifts for me in my transition was that I used to kind of just very goal oriented. So I would just like push through things and, you know, very used to get like working hard and seeing the results of that and being able to achieve a lot. And I think for me, slowing down was a really big lesson.
Hmm.
Um, Not only and slowing down in a way that feels good and feels
Hmm.
right. Because that wasn't necessarily something that came naturally to me, but it was critical. It was
Hmm.
critical for me for my recovery and for my bonding experience with my babies. And I think historically my mindset was that slowing down meant kind of foregoing productivity
Yes.
or efficiency in some way. It was sort of not a positive in my mind, but it actually really is a positive. And in fact, I would encourage all parents to invest in some mindfulness work and understanding what that means and how that can be helpful for them.
Yeah, and they say kids are your biggest teachers from the minute that they're born forever, right? But especially in those few months, and if you really allow yourself, I mean, some of the kids will just make you, right, have to prioritize them versus everything else, just because that is their need, especially in those first 3 months. We know it's critical and it's 24 hours a day, but that is sort of the beauty and the hard part of parenting is they come first and they will make sure that they know and you know that they come first. So like you said, sometimes you just got to let everything go and just be in the moment with them.
Yeah, that's so true. Yep.
Yeah, also our tough lesson too. And for people who are listening, loved ones who want to support someone in that postpartum period, what would be your biggest advice?
Well, there's so much that friends and family and neighbors and community can do to give a new parent support that they need. Um, so I'll start off by saying what's not helpful,
Yes,
which
that's
is,
always actually helpful to know what not to do.
yeah,
Hmm.
is to show up and expect them to entertain you or host you,
Yes.
uh, and ex and expect them to have a clean house and just be on and to let you talk about what's happening at work and gossip and no,
Mm-hmm.
none of that. Like your old ideas about socialization kind of go out the window. So don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that goes a long way is showing up with a true expectation of thinking about how you can be a practical helper.
Yes.
So you're there to listen. You're there to offer a listening ear and friendship in the form that they need it, that social support. And then practically, just use your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Look around. If there's a pile of laundry that needs to get folded, just fold it
Just do
while you're listening.
it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just do it.
Sometimes don't even ask because they could be so overwhelmed that they don't even know how to ask for help when they're trying to figure things out. So, like you said, if you find an opportunity, deliver a meal, right? It doesn't have to be 5 questions about it. You just do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And ask
Mm-hmm.
them what they need. I think as a new parent postpartum in that fourth trimester period, it can be tough, especially if it's your very first time. It's hard to ask for help. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why you say, like, don't necessarily wait for them to ask. Like, you can just either do it or you can ask permission. May I clean your bathroom for you?
Mm-hmm.
I remember what it was like for me. May I do that for you? Or may I cook you a meal? The other thing is, especially for breastfeeding moms, just put the food in front of them. Don't even ask
Yes.
if they're hungry. The answer is yes, they're hungry. So just make a snack. You can bring something from home that's very nourishing, a warm soup, something that's got a lot of healthy nutrients in it, right? And just put it in front of them and put some in the fridge and make it easy where they can just grab it. Because breastfeeding moms are always hungry.
Yeah. And if you have the permission to just hold the baby while the mother can sit there without a human attached to her, or just use the restroom if she needs, or just walk around for a minute if she needs to, I think those are all the little things that go such a long way.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
let mom sleep.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Just
The
let mom
chronic
sleep.
sleep deprivation. Yeah, that's something I will definitely remember. Sarah, I know you have a podcast. Tell us about that.
Sure. It's called Fourth Trimester Podcast. I started it in 2016. My co-host on the show is Esther Gallagher. She's a postpartum doula who was my postpartum doula. And the questions that I asked her when I became a parent were a lot of the questions that she had when she first became a parent some 30 years prior.
Mhm.
So after many conversations, we just said, let's start recording this. Let's start sharing this information for free out there and see what happens. So we've been doing that for a number of years, and you can find us at fourthtrimesterpodcast.com. We have our Instagram handle, so you can follow us there. And you can
Awesome.
always reach out and talk to us. We love to hear from listeners.
Yeah, you're so friendly, and I'm glad we met. You're going to be on the Baby Steps Nutrition podcast. And so, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Argavanya Forush. I'm a dietitian. I specialize in pediatrics, but I work with people of all ages and stages. And I, too, like Sarah, have a podcast that is a passion project. That's how we got together. Baby Steps Nutrition, found on all popular listening platforms. We're both currently participating on Podcaston, which is really cool. Hopefully, we can do this every year and also collaborate with other fellow podcasters, right? I learned a new word called passionista. So I'm going to be using that term for life. So thank you for being here. Stay tuned for our in podcast interview where we're going to be diving deep into these topics. Any last words of advice, favorite quote, life's philosophy?
Yeah, definitely. Give yourself grace and ask for help.
Yeah. I mean that really that goes such a long way, right? And it's a journey. We all can work on that every day. Yeah, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
being here and can't wait to have our podcast interview. Thank you for your time and congratulations on the podcast. I'm excited to listen more.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I love your show too. And I'm excited to
Thank
have
you.
you as a guest on my show. So,
Yes, can't
um,
wait.
so much to come. Thank you so much. It was really fun doing this today.
Yep, and thank you to everyone who joined us and happy Monday and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Bye bye.